Hello and good evening. I'm Paul. This is Dave. I'm a beer enthusiast and drinker, and Dave here is a certified beer judge and homebrewer. And today we are drinking Rogue Dreamland American Lager. Now, this is actually pretty cool because part of the proceeds for this goes towards building skate parks for people. So that's why we've got a skater on the front there.
Yeah, I really like the can.
It's a little busy for me, to be honest. Although the purple does stand out against a sea of
Well, it's got like little aliens and skateboarder and fish, some rockets on it,
a
a
screwdriver.
pterodactyl. So yeah, I mean it's got some good stuff on it. So yeah, and it's kind of neat that they the proceeds of it goes towards funding skate parks, which
Yep.
I think are a really good idea. I don't know if you did much skating when you were younger, but I did, and really enjoyed that. Most of the time I was out on the streets and
And when I was younger, I lived down a dirt road, so there wasn't a whole lot of skating.
yeah, yeah. So my son does a lot of skating. He actually uses the skate parks quite a bit. He's actually a good kid, and probably unlike me when I was a kid.
We were hooligans.
Yeah,
Company here is Dreamland. They were founded in 1988 in Ashland, Oregon. One of the fun facts off their website is that they cooper their own barrels.
that's kind of cool.
I thought was pretty cool because most of the time that gets farmed out because coopering is a skill to actually make wooden barrels, you know.
Well, I mean, I know you do a lot of stuff with wood, with guitars and building out cabinets and different things like that. So, but I've done a few things with like making bows, and I've always looked into coopering in regards to what that process is like. And
It's a
pretty
skill
fascinating.
that you would have to put a lot of time and energy to actually get good at it. But once you got good at it, it probably would go really fast.
Yeah, and has got a good history to it too. I mean, obviously they've been coopering for
A
literally
long time.
long time. So it has some really cool history to it, through the Middle Ages and everything.
Yep. Anyway, one thing I do also like about this beer before we even get into it is on the can they have the APV, which is normal, 4.8, but they included the IBU rating, which is basically its bitterness. See if we can get it to come up there. There we go. Which is 14, and then the SRH is 3.4, and I was
SRM.
SRM. Well, apparently I need new glasses or something. But I'm not really familiar with that scale is. Dave could tell you a little bit.
Yeah, so the IBU is the International Bittering Unit. It's a way to measure the bittering of the beer. And you can actually calculate this when you're making the beer, knowing how long your hops are going to be in the boil, for how long, and the level of alpha acids that are in the hops when you actually put them into their. They go through a process over time that converts through the boiling, that actually converts those oils into actually bittering. I think it's called isomerization. It's hard to pronounce for me, but it's something to that effect that creates a bittering, and they put it on a scale, so it makes it really easy to make beer, as well as to be able to judge on how bitter is this beer. Am I going to like it?
Yeah, it's one thing I kind of wish they put the IBU rating on more cans of beer because it really does matter to the flavor, right? Like you get a good IPA, you can be at 80 plus. You get an American Pale Ale, you can be at 90, and it really changes how the beers taste. Like it's a huge thing.
Oh yeah.
Some beers are very low, like I think Blue Moon's like down around 10 or something like that. It's almost no hop flavor to it at all. Whereas you get like a Hop Knot from Four Peaks Brewing, it's like the hops are just almost completely overwhelming to everything.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things that I wish would be more on more beer cans because it'll definitely paint a better picture for where your flavor characteristics are in as far as the drink itself for the most part.
Yeah. And the SRM is kind of an interesting one to throw on there as well because that's going to be the color. The color is really going to be derived from the malts and how they malt the actual barley, so or roast it. So in that process, as they're going through that malting process, depending on what they're doing, they create all different kind of characters of malts that when you're buying the barley or the wheat, you're able to know what their SRM levels are. And you can say, well, this beer should be this color. And therefore, like I've got a computer program I can plug the notes into, and it'll literally tell me it's going to be this color when I'm done, knowing that I'm going through that process. That's assuming, obviously, that I'm not caramelizing things through the process of brewing them, maybe adding additional color to
All right. Well, anyway, we better get on with the actual drinking and away from the boring talk.
it. I enjoy that part of it. So,
Well,
obviously, why I've been a home brewer for such a long time.
I
One of the
enjoy it
things-
too, but most people are tuned in for the beer. So
Yeah. So, one of the things I really like about once you've brewed for a while is I can almost taste a beer while I'm building the recipe. It's almost like a chef when they're, making some food. They're actually able to know, hey, it needs a little bit of this and it needs a little bit of that and a little bit more of this. And you can do that without even though you may be days away from the finished beer, knowing how those ingredients impart what you're looking for, be it aroma or flavor or bitterness.
well, yeah,
or,
you're building. It's like building a house or anything else, really.
Let's see if we can get that up there.
It's a fairly clear beer.
Yeah, fairly clear. Looks like it's got a little bit of cloudiness to it, but nothing too bad. The head kind of dissipates pretty quick. Wouldn't call it thin, but it's got a great aroma.
It does have a nice smell.
Again, a light lager, very light beer. It's not anything that's going to be overwhelming on any aspect of it.
Malt. Smell
But
the
it's
malt.
also one that when you taste a lot of the big commercial light lagers, there's always something wrong with it. Appley, or it may taste too grassy, or there's a ton of like off flavors in like real common beers. And usually you can smell them. And this is actually smelling really good.
Yeah, no, this is a very pleasant smell. Kind of malty, hint of citrus. Don't really smell any hops, which is to be expected with a 14 IBU.
Yeah, really light on the bitterness. Yeah, it's a light lager.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of lagers personally. I like ales, but when I go into ales, when I lean into them, I'm looking for something more that's like really in the extreme. Some of those Belgians, some of the Hefeweizen, something along those lines. Otherwise, from a drinking beer, I do like a lot of lagers and bocks and beers along those lines. Rogue has a Maybach that they do, and I think they do a really good job on that one as well. So this is good. I like it. It's really clean.
yeah, it's clean, it's crisp. It doesn't have that back bite. It's a little on the sweet side for my taste, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer a little bit more hop to it, but it's nothing to complain about, to be honest with you. This is also, we said in our previous video, or I did, that the beer was dangerous. This is another one of those beers I think could easily fall into the dangerous category.
This would almost be more dangerous for me than the previous beer. The previous beer that we were doing was a Pilsner, and it had some bitterness to it, had a little bit of bitterness bite, but it was still within reason for what the beer was. This one doesn't have that bitterness. It doesn't have that hoppy kind of character to it. There's a little bit there,
Yeah,
but it does have a little bit of that sweetness, and it's really, really smooth.
yeah, this goes down very easily. It does a very light mouthfeel, not much to it at all. Like, it's not thick by any stretch. And this is one of those beers, if you're drinking on a hot summer afternoon, you could find yourself sucking through quite a few of them.
Yeah, one of the things about light lagers is they are ultimately what you're trying to do when you're making them is not screw up. And it sounds funny, but you can screw up an IPA, still make a great beer. You can
Well, there's
screw up a
nothing.
lot of beers.
There's nothing hiding in this.
Yeah, you
This
can't
is
hide any screw ups in this beer because it's so light. It really needs that.
yeah. No, there's no hiding anything behind anything else. You know, you can't overwhelm an off flavor with hops, for example, or you can't overwhelm an off flavor with like a really strong malt or yeast in this.
Mhm.
You have to have things bang on.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not wild. It is very clean. Good character to it. Really easy to drink.
Very drinkable beer. If you like the normal beers out there, your MGDs, your Heinekens, your Budweisers, you know,
Hmm.
their common stuff, Modelo, whatever, this would probably be a beer you'd really enjoy.
Yeah, and I would choose this over all those that you just mentioned.
Oh, so would
Because
I.
almost all those have some characteristic that you can say, yeah, this is where it shouldn't have that. This is not the intended, this is the result. And it may create character that creates flavor. I used to have a friend that loved Heinekens. And he loved Heinekens because he kind of liked that skunky taste to the Heineken. Have you ever had a Heineken before?
Yes,
You
I've
know
had
what
Heineken.
skunky tank taste is, right?
I
So,
do.
and a skunky taste is not actually intended to be there in beer. You're supposed to subdue, eliminate it. It's sunlight hitting the beer, reacting with the hops. A lot of it has to do with their processing. You get less of it in a can than you do a bottle. But obviously, they were choosing green bottles from a marketing standpoint. And because of it, had to deal with that result. But so there are some companies that have actually marketed themselves around it, but this is really a good example of an American lager. And I think they've done a great job on presenting it. They're an Oregon company, so
It does smell good, even taking the drink out of it.
yeah. Oregon, in my opinion, they know their beers.
Yeah, I'm becoming more and more convinced that they do because we've done a couple from Oregon, and they've pretty much all been pretty much solid home runs.
Yeah, so when you look at like where they grow a lot of hops, that's the coastline that they grow a lot of hops. You'll find them in Oregon, you'll find them up in Washington. Those are the kind of areas that you're going to find a lot of hop growth. So typically you're going to have people who really know what they're doing. I even know one of the big yeast companies is based out of Oregon, and just a lot of good beer culture there. My brother actually moved there. He's a big beer guy. So
Well, it's a good product, but we better get on to our scoring system before we yammer on the rest of the night. And apparently Dave's gonna need another one, but fortunately I didn't leave him in the fridge.
oh, I think I still have a little more left.
So
I did not pour that out.
anyway, let's
So-
get on to our rating system here for presentation.
Yeah, presentation. I was a little disappointed on how quickly the head dissipated. That
I
was
was
one of the
fine
things,
with it.
and it may be kind of part of the grain bill of this beer, where you're not really putting into it the kind of malts that are going to do that because it's going to alter the flavor.
Well, it's not gonna have a whole lot of protein if you're not loading it up with
Yeah,
the
it's
malts.
really they make them really thin. So there's a lot of things like in a lot of commercial examples they'll use rice or corn to thin them out. This tastes like it is not using any of those adjuncts in it. So I really appreciate that. Presentation, I'm going to be a little bit lower on that one purely because I wish it did have more head. I don't ideally know. I don't brew this often, so I don't know how you would get that in there and still keep the color where it's at. But I do think it had a great smell to it. Nothing overwhelming and great color. Could be a little more clear though.
I'm going to go ahead and give it actually a more generous score of a 7.5. And the reason being is it's the style of the beer. I don't need to have a perfect head out of every beer,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Smells fantastic. It's one of those things I've kind of gotten a little harsher on my rating system. If it's a 10, it's going to be a 10, you know. But other than that, I really don't have any issues with this. It is definitely above average, you know. So don't by any chance think I'm kind of being snooty about anything here. As far as taste is concerned, I do like this beer. I like other beers more, but I won't turn this beer down. And this actually isn't the first one of these I had. I actually had one several months ago. But as far as taste is concerned, I'm going to be at a 7 on that one. It's a good beer. I'll take it over a lot of other beers, but and you could drink it all night, but I don't know that I would choose to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm probably gonna go at a 7.5 on that, on the taste. I think it tastes better than it presents. Because it presents really light, it's not telling me anything fabulous. The head dissipates, so again, that's one of those kind of things. It has a little bit of cloudiness to it. The cloudiness seems to kind of go away a little bit. And it could be my glass, but
It could be that it just needs to warm up more.
yeah, it could be. But overall, I do think it tastes better than it presents, and I think that's a big piece of it.
So what are you giving it for your overall?
Overall, I'm going to give it a 7. And on a personal preference, I'm probably going to be a little bit more critical over it because, again, it's not in my style that I'm seeking. Though, that being said, if I'm looking for a light lager, this is probably one of the best light lagers I've had. They're really doing a phenomenal job of that. So I don't really go looking for a light lager, and obviously I probably would walk past it because I'm like, it's an American lager. It's probably not something, but it's really enjoyable for what it is. I think it's probably one of the best light lagers I've ever had. I'm gonna give it a 6.
All right. Overall, I'm going to probably be with you on the 7 as far as I'm concerned. It's definitely a higher quality product. It's, not to say this 2 videos in a row, but once again, it is one of those beers that, like, if Budweiser tasted good, it'd be something along these lines. As far as my personal preference, I'm actually going to match you with that one too. There are a lot of beers I would rather drink than this, but there are a whole lot of beers I will happily take this over.
Yeah, I'm just really impressed with this, with the fact that it doesn't have any of the off flavors to it. And I think it really goes to Rogue's attention to detail, attention on that, wanting to provide a quality product. I think the style in itself is not a super exciting style to me, but it's also the most popular style in America. So obviously, when it comes to the average palate, you're going to be happy with this beer.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to be even happier with the fact that it doesn't have a lot of those things that
Well, you'll
really aren't
probably
intended to
actually
be in the
really
beer.
enjoy this because it's got a really good flavor.
Yeah, really good flavor.
It's a very familiar flavor, but it's a really good flavor. So I do have to say cheers to Rogue. Cheers to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good job.
Like, subscribe.
Rogue. If you ever want to come on the channel, Rogue, we'd love to have you on.
Yep.
Maybe we'll fly into Oregon to do an interview.
That's a long flight, but whatever. Have a good evening, everyone.